Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. Today I have with me in the studio, she's a very dear friend, a great colleague, a sorority sister, just a mover and a shaker within the Southwest Georgia region, actually across the nation. We'll talk about a little of the initiatives and the projects that she has going on, but she's a colleague from Albany Technical College, and she is none other than Dr. Kimberly Lee. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Yeah, thank you for joining me. We finally were able to carve out a little time in your super busy schedule. Yeah, tell everybody a little bit for those who may not be familiar with your background, where you're originally from, where you did your undergraduate, graduate work, and then we'll segue into how you made it to the city of Albany.
Great, we'll definitely do that. I am native to Florida, born in Jacksonville, but raised in the great city of Ocala, Florida, Marion County. It's north central Florida, maybe about an hour, 15 minutes north of Disney.
Okay.
So of course it was the family activity and the school activity for years growing up. Did undergraduate and graduate work at the Florida State University. And transitioned to Atlanta just for employment purposes to work for what was then the Department of Technical and Adult Education.
Okay.
Working for adult literacy. Worked there and did all of the teacher and professional development for teachers, and then did GED testing, but decided I wanted to do more work in terms of education and higher ed, and did my doctoral work at the University of Georgia.
Okay.
So worked there, continued working there, did a small stint in Alabama, vice chancellor for adult education for that state, and wanted to get back in the Georgia system. And there was an opportunity right here at Albany Technical College, and Dr. Parker and I had a very long relationship in terms of professional relationship, working together. Had the opportunity to work with him in Atlanta for a short stint.
Okay.
So an opportunity became available here, and I jumped right on it.
Excellent. Well, we're so glad that you did. Yeah, Albany State and well, the whole community has been able to benefit from your presence. Let's go back. The adult population as it relates to higher education, pursuing that demographic. Adult education, that's the word that I'm looking for. I need another cup of coffee, but we'll keep moving forward.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Particularly, it's unique in this area, has been my observation. And I know you all at Albany Technical College, you see a myriad of individuals coming with needs and expectations as it relates to their educational development. And I still, in fact, I said this the other day, I was having a conversation. I'm still struck by a comment that Dr. Parker made probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was, we were talking about education, and it was leadership within this community at that particular time. And he said something that was that really resonated with me, and it was that you all see a lot of individuals that walk through those doors at Albany Technical College that have a literacy level or reading level of 8th grade or below.
That is absolutely correct. And when you look at the statistics for the state of Georgia, Southwest Georgia, this corridor has the highest, lowest level, I guess you will, of functional literacy. So individuals might have a credential, but they don't have the functional skills, say, to be able to do public transportation, to balance a checkbook. So in this area, he's absolutely correct. 8th grade reading level or below. But I will say that at least during my tenure here, I've seen a lot of great work with Dougherty County Public Schools in increasing that graduation rate and assisting individuals that might be able to return to the public school setting to complete the high school diploma. But even for those that do not, we offer the adult literacy program, and then also for those whose native language is not English, we offer the English as a second language program. And assisting those individuals to get the functional literacy skills that they need in order to compete, transition to post-secondary education, or compete in the workforce.
Very good. Very good. Well, yeah, you all have certainly impressively done that. Again, as I said, I was struck in that meeting. And again, this was leadership. It was Dr. Mosley, Paul Jones at the time, who was at the time over Darton State College, Dr. Parker.
Right.
And that was what the conversation was about. How can we make a greater impact? And again, I was just absolutely blown away because obviously you all are meeting people where they are and then getting them to develop in their skill set so that they can advance in whatever their career path is, because where so many people just take that for granted, that you know how to read at the targeted or the grade level in terms of which you completed, and that is not the case. So when you said that you had a background in adult literacy, it makes perfect sense in terms of your role there. However, you are over institutional effectiveness.
Absolutely. Okay. All of the accreditation and all of the research for Albany Technical College. That's the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, where I had the pleasure of serving as vice president. So we are engaged in really looking at whether or not we are making progress, if we are effective in everything that we do, from adult education to our 4-credit programs, to our also our business solution programs, those programs that are continuing education. So we do an assessment looking at our retention rate for all of our academic programs. Do the students that come in the fall, are they here in the spring? So there's a report that was Dr. Parker's brainchild with regard to developing a dream report. iPads, and I know this is just educational lingo, iPads does do a cohort retention, but Dr. Parker thought, well, look, if we just do from fall to fall, that doesn't really tell us the story of retention. So let's develop something that will tell us whether or not students that come in the fall are here in the spring, students that come in the spring are still here in the summer, and following that trajectory, or following those students throughout their tenure at Albany Technical College through completion. Because if we don't do that and really pay attention to how students are performing, then the outcomes that the students deserve, not so much that we're looking for administratively, but the outcomes that the students deserve, if we're not paying attention and keeping a pulse, we might not be serving them in the best manner possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, those are wise efforts, and we get so caught up in the day-to-day operations. It's oftentimes, and not intentional, that we lose sight of why we are here. Right. It's to provide a full service education, understanding that, particularly in this area, and I know you and the producer were having some conversations earlier about the socioeconomic background and the influence that has in so many facets of an individual's life. And so if I'm currently, as you can tell, doing some research on that area, but if I'm attempting to go to school, earn a college degree, and then I have to be concerned about a myriad of other issues or conditions in my life, like how I'm going to feed my children, am I going to be able to pay the light bill, do I have transportation? All of those then influence my ability to then transition from one semester to the next.
Absolutely. And so we have to understand that these barriers are just that. They are barriers. That the onus is on us, the educators, those who have this calling to be here. The onus is on us to embrace and to do things differently that will, first of all, attract these students, retain these students, and help them through to completion. That means graduation, and then for us at Albany Technical College, also for job placement, making sure that they get a job with sustainable wages, not just a job. And I'm not negating entry-level employment or minimum wage, but when you begin thinking about if an individual will be able to sustain themselves and their families, then they have to have the skill set that is going to get them those types of jobs, and then they turn back and contribute to the tax base. So it's a win-win when you develop programs and services that's going to embrace these students. And a lot of students, as you're conducting your research, you know this first-generation students, there's not anyone in the family that can tell them about college life. There's not anyone that they know in their community, so to speak, that can help them make that transition. So then it's on us to develop programs and services that we might consider to be wraparound student services or more intrusive type of advising to assist them through the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm not going to stay on my research topic for long, but I was sharing this the other day. I had to do my first defense last Friday. And so this came, thank you. So one of the things that came up and that I shared is, again, we take so much for granted because we do this, eat, breathe, and sleep, higher education. And I'm always reminded of a young man who was a first-generation student. He was in the D.C. area, went off to exceptionally well academically, but the social adjustment and acclimation was challenging for him. And so he struggled and did not see it fully through in terms of earning his college degree. But he was having difficulty making the adjustment of, do I belong in this environment?
Yes.
Will somebody then view me as an imposter? And then having to make just simple decisions where you and I would think that they were simple. And then that guilt. So he left home, left siblings behind, helping his mom to just make it day to day. And their biggest challenge oftentimes was, okay, are we going to be able to have enough food to eat, put on the table for everyone? Then he transitioned into this totally different world environment, and then his decision went from, do we have enough food to eat, to I have a menu of 16 cereal choices for breakfast every morning. And so which one do I pick? And then the guilt of that, because my siblings and my family are back home, and you know, sometimes we have to miss breakfast. So I say all that to say that students bring all of that to the classroom. Yes. It's not always verbalized or voiced, but it is nonetheless there. So again, I applaud you and Dr. Parker, and I know it makes a team to make that happen. One of the things that I admire about you is that you are very focused and very intentional, and so you give your role or your position 150%, but then you understand and the value and the importance of the professional development. So you are always involved within an organization or being invited to serve. And so I've had the pleasure of participating. You had a symposium a couple years ago focusing on women in higher ed, but you were just invited to. You were telling me I'll be in Stanford later on. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Very excited about that.
Great.
One of 2 Georgians to be selected in the 2nd class of the Aspen Presidential Fellowship for community colleges. So very exciting about excited about that opportunity, because what it will do, it helps prepare individuals who have that desire to be in executive leadership for community colleges or four-year institutions. But more importantly, it really the funders are concerned about the how well education or these institutions are going to better serve communities. So making sure that leadership is prepared, there's a reservoir of leaders that would be prepared to take the helm or to serve in executive level positions, whether it's provost or vice president of student affairs, or even in roles that I'm serving in right now, vice presidents for institutional effectiveness. But it's these individuals that's looking at how to meet the demand, because if we don't have the educated workforce, if we don't do a better job, the American edge that we have been so blessed with during our lifetimes, that will slip. And so I think that I'm excited to participate in it and to be with others who are maybe participating in this think tank or thinking about ways, being innovative in our thinking about how to better serve and how to restructure maybe even the educational system, higher ed, to be have a better presence in the community, and to be, I would say, more for students and adults to seek us to help them to get in a better position to be a better service to their families and their communities.
Very good, very good. I want to go back to your role in terms of institutional effectiveness, and oftentimes the layman person or the non-higher ed person just may be absolutely clueless as to what that entails. And so you shared a little bit about that, and the primary focus is what are we doing in operative word being effective in terms of our operations and the educational process at Albany Technical College. How are we best serving these individuals? But what is it that interests you in terms of what made you say, okay, this is what if that was the case, in fact, I'm going to major in this and do this and do this, that led to I want to pursue this position?
I really wish I could sit here and tell you that I grew up saying this is what I want to be as a little girl. No, as a matter of fact, I'm perhaps I'm on the most non-traditional track.
Okay.
So, but somehow, and I wasn't even an evaluator in my undergraduate or graduate work, right? But somehow I know that if you don't measure something and you don't really determine its effectiveness or determine whether or not it's working, then perhaps you would not know what you need to change, right? And so during my tenure in adult literacy and adult education, and for a long time I served as the state director for GED testing. And what we wanted to know, our GED graduates, are we preparing them in the classroom? And if we're preparing them, are they prepared then based on their scores to transition into post-secondary education? Because that was one of the primary reasons individuals indicated that they wanted to take the GED test.
Certainly.
And at what rate are they transitioning? And then if they are transitioning, then at what rate are they completing post-secondary education? So I really got into this evaluation data, statistics, looking at numbers, and that's the doctoral work, looking at GED graduates who transition to post-secondary education as well as those that complete it. And what we know about non-traditional students was the outcome of the study. It takes a longer time. Yes, they do transition, not at the rate that they indicate, but it takes a longer time to completion. So if you're looking at completion, say for a 4-year program, it probably takes 6 to 8 years for that GED or non-traditional graduate.
Sure.
So in this role, in terms of institutional effectiveness, it's that same evaluation model. Are you getting what you pay for? Yeah. What's the benefit to you? What's the benefit back to the taxpayer? And so what we're working on right now, that Dr. Parker has us working on, is budget hearings, that every dime that we spend or is expended should go back to student learning and achievement. We should be able to tie it to that, because ultimately at the end of the day, as you the taxpayer, as me the taxpayer, as you the student paying your tuition and fees, you want to make sure that you're getting a return on your investment. So everything, we can't really break everything down to quantify it, but to the extent possible, that's what we're doing. So that's pretty much what that office is designed for. Determining whether or not students are learning, are students achieving, are students completing, and are they being placed? What do the employers say? Yeah,
absolutely.
Albany Technical College, along within the Technical College system of Georgia, still warranty every graduate. So if the employer, if the student within 6 months of completing the program, receiving the credential, I really didn't get this concept, or the employer is saying that's not really, they're not really meeting the standard, send them back. And at no cost to the student or the employer, within 6 months, we will retrain them on something that was in that curriculum. So we really believe in the product that we have to offer, and that's what the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, in addition to accreditation, and that accreditation ultimately says the same thing. The focus is on student learning and achievement. That's what we are funded for. That's what we're designed to do.
Absolutely, and that's critical, and that's certainly admirable. You want a quality product in the form of an individual with the skill set and the knowledge to be able to help advance my organization. And so if there was something that is amiss, then yeah, we need to circle back and what do we need to do collectively to get that addressed. And that's certainly, I think higher ed institutions miss that a lot as it relates to that student and that degree is a testament or a direct link or line back to your reputation in terms of the product deliverable. So that's amazing. Good deal. Good deal. Right. Let's delve a little bit more before we get ready to wrap up into Dr. Kimberly Lee. So I think I gave you your homework assignment on this, but you'll be able to catch on. So if you had an opportunity to interview 3 people, well, no, not interview, invite them over to your home for dinner. And our audience would know these individuals on a national or international scale. Who would they be? And what kind of conversation would you all have?
So there are 2 writers, 2 authors that I just really admire a whole lot. One is Ghanaian and one is South African. And when you were talking about the young man who was the first generation student, I immediately came to mind was this Mark Mathabane. And I'm not certain that our audience really knows him, but he's the author of Kafer Boy, which is the negative term used in South Africa. I've had an opportunity to meet him, would love to sit down and have dinner with him again. Just think he's a brilliant mind. But the stories that I like are those stories about perseverance and resilience.
Sure.
And he talks about growing up in apartheid South Africa and really admiring the resilience of his mother. I mean, some very horrific conditions that he grew up in, having to live on cardboard for beds and just ugliness, right?
Yes.
But the book, he writes about the horrific events, but without bitterness. Yeah. And so what that says to me in the conversation I'd like to have, and I'll segue to the other two individuals.
Take your time.
What that says to me is it's not about what happens to you in life. It's about how you handle it and how you take it, how you respond. And obviously we know with him, you know, he's in America, and he's published several other books subsequent to Kafer Boy, but very well established. And the same challenge that you mentioned for the first generation student, that's a challenge that he had as well when he had the opportunity to come to the U.S. for his undergraduate work, leaving behind siblings in such horrific conditions, right? And having some of the guilt, you know, for having the opportunity to come on a tennis scholarship and academic scholarship. So I love his work and would love to continue having conversation with him. Another writer that I've had the opportunity to meet is Ama Ata Adu, No Sweetness Here, which she writes about, and this whole, she's very witty in her writing, right? Because she talks about the independence of Ghana. The No Sweetness Here talks about the longing for what was, you know, when you could have everything that was available in your community before westernization, you owned it, you had it. And then subsequent to this independence, the desire for what the West had. So, I mean, wittingly, she writes about social idealism, you know, the social idealism in terms of making the satirical remarks, right, about the West, but yet still being very committed to what was prior to independence. So very brilliant writer. So I would love to have those two at the table, just to have that conversation again. And it's the whole idea about perseverance, but not with the bitterness, not being, not allowing what has happened to you to really impact you in a negative fashion.
That's right. It's important.
And let's see, so of course, I mean, I had the opportunity to just sit and talk to Barack and Michelle, you know, really humble.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Right.
I mean, there just aren't enough descriptors.
I would agree.
Selflessness. Yeah. So if I had the opportunity to invite them over and have dinner, I would just love the conversation.
Sure.
And about, and I want to end with this piece, what Barack, you know, resurfaced during his initial campaign, and it's from Native Americans. It says, "We're the ones we've been waiting for."
I love that.
Yeah, so if we're looking for a different institution, we're looking for a different community, if we're looking for people to act differently, we have to be what we expect.
Right, right.
And so I would love to engage in conversation around those things about resilience, perseverance, and I'm responsible. You know, and in my childhood, there was a song in my Baptist training union that we sang, brighten the corner where you are. You do what you can, where you can, at that particular time.
Sure,
and that's where you have responsibility.
Well, a couple of things before we wrap up, and so I have to echo the point that you made in terms of just ownness and responsibility. I have this conversation with my two lovelies, my children, all the time, because it's so easy to become entrenched with the challenges of life, and then that is all that is your conversation about what is wrong. And I have to remind them that you have to shift, but what is right? Yeah. And so there's those instances, those incidents, those circumstances that happened, and they may have been very ugly, whether they happened to you or someone that you know or love, or and may not even know. And so while you're pondering, well, why did this happen? You are missing out on life, and you are certainly missing out on that opportunity to learn from those moments. There's a lesson in that challenge and that difficulty. So and then it helps you to appreciate. So to then go back to the first author that you mentioned, to So, you know, I know I need to change my mattress. It's just time for me to do that.
Yeah.
But then I put it into proper perspective and say, okay, but the opposite of that is somebody is laying on cardboard.
Yes. Yes.
Or have nothing to lay on it at all.
That is so very correct.
And it's not in South Africa. It is as close as, you know, less than 5 miles away in downtown Albany or in Atlanta.
Yes.
So you have to just be mindful of that. And then, as you so eloquently said, and then what are you going to do about it?
And the time is now.
Right.
The time is right now. You don't have 2 years from now,
Sure.
I'm going to do this. It's right now. What are you going to do about it today? What is it? Practice random acts of kindness. The time for that is now. And so, to alleviate and remove any bitterness,
Right.
whatever has happened, or if you didn't get the opportunity to go to school because maybe, you know, your family didn't have the funds
Right.
to send you, you didn't understand the what was available to you at the age of 18. Maybe you didn't complete high school at that time, or whatever the reason. The time is now.
Absolutely.
Right here in this city, you've got Albany State University, you have Albany Technical College. We're ready. So if that's something that you are bitter about for whatever happened, okay, that's in the past.
Indeed.
Let's move forward. And I think you and I can agree that we work with colleagues who are ready to embrace you if
Sure.
that's the choice that you make right now today. If you were in a bad marriage, okay, what right now today is the time to change that or move forward, do something different in your life. And what I'm saying to myself on this,
we have to talk to ourselves.
yeah, I'm talking
don't
to
we?
me.
I
You know,
know.
I have been on this, you know, weight reduction, and it doesn't seem to be working, but I cannot, you know, throw in the towel and
Yes.
give up on that or say,
Right.
oh, well, I just, No, 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 no. The time is now, and
Sure.
the responsibility is on me.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well, I didn't know you were going to come and preach to me too this
I didn't mean
morning.
to.
Yeah, you had to remind me to shift. And so, as I ate something from Dairy Queen last night, just trying to get through the moment
I had a great caramel cake yesterday.
Yeah. Kindred spirits, like-minded
Yes,
people.
yes.
It was a pleasure having you on the
Ditto.
show this morning. All those reservations that you had. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited. Certainly, I've said this to you 1,000 times. And I don't know if I've said this to you. My concern and my worry is that someone on a national scale or international scale is going to say, we need her.
Wow.
And it'll be outside of Southwest Georgia. And so, but if in fact that happens, and I would not be surprised if it happened in the very near future, we can honestly say that you have made a huge impact, and we will continue to love and embrace and soak up all the knowledge and expertise that you have while we have you.
Thank you so much, and know that I'm delighted to be right here in Albany,
I
the
know.
good life city,
It
and
is
I found
indeed.
it to be just that.
It is indeed. It is
Yes,
indeed. Dr. Kimberly Lee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I will see you next time.